The definitive enemy of Hawkins might not be the architect of evil we all thought he was, but a tragic victim himself. And that fundamentally changes the stakes of the final battle. Welcome to the debates.
Yeah, the way the finale seems to be structured, along with everything we're getting from the prequel lore and even Will's new powers, it all points to this huge conflict over who's really in charge of the Upside Down. It's not just about killing the monster anymore.
Exactly. And so the central question we're tackling today is this. Is Vecna, Henry Creel, the final self-directed mastermind behind the invasion, acting on his own philosophy? Or is he just a powerful, corrupted pawn, a host for the ancient intelligence of the Mind Flayer?
A lightning rod for the storm.
Right, and I'll be arguing that Vecna absolutely maintains enough agency, motivation, and strategic control to be considered the ultimate villain.
And I'll be making the case that the evidence points to the Mind Flayer as a supreme manipulative entity. Vecna is its greatest tool, sure, but he's still a tool, a victim even, serving a much older cosmic agenda.
So my whole argument really rests on this idea that Vecna's unique psychology and his actions, they confirm he's the architect here. He is the creator and the molder of the threat as we know it, not just some pawn executing a plan. I mean, we know Vecna has this very specific, almost Nietzschean philosophy, right? He hates the hypocrisy of the human world, he sees the upside down as something truer, and his actions are, in his own twisted mind, completely justified. That kind of malice is self-directed. That's not just following orders.
And think about the timeline. Henry Creel is the first person to really go there, back in 79, when 11 banishes him. The dimension might have existed before, sure, but all the material suggests he didn't just adapt to it. He shaped it. He molded it with his own trauma, gave it its current purpose, and most critically, his master plan, the ritual. Targeting 12 kids to line up with the 12 hours on a clock, using them to tear open the rifts. That requires, immense autonomous strategy. That level of personalized design is the mark of an architect, not a lieutenant.
Okay, but I have to push back on that. I respectfully disagree that his personalization of the threat really outweighs the evidence of his subservience. I mean, you can call him the lightning rod that focuses the power, that's fine. But the Mind Flayer is the storm. It's the ancient entity that corrupted Henry Creel in the first place and turned him into Vecna. He's a tool, a perfect one, designed to fulfill a goal that's way bigger than him, to consume worlds.
But
And the prequel lore, it really sets this up. The stage play, The First Shadow, heavily implies the Mind Flayer was the force that pushed Henry to embrace his dark side from the very beginning. He was fighting it. There was this internal struggle inside his head, which tells me the Henry Creel persona is separate from the thing that corrupted him. So Vecna is the result of that corruption, the perfect host, not some innate standalone evil. And then you have the hive mind. That's the key. Will's new powers come directly from his connection to that network. If Will can tap into it and manipulate demogorgons, it really suggests that Vecna's power is drawn from that network. A network that we've always been told is controlled by the Mind Flayer.
I see why you're emphasizing the Mind Flayer as this abstract source of power. But let me offer a different perspective on control here. Even if the Mind Flayer started the corruption way back in the 50s, Vecna is the one controlling the war now. The Mind Flayer might have sought him out because he had this immense psychic ability, yeah? But Vecna developed the strategy. He designed the ritual, the geometric arrangement of the victims to open the bridge to our world.
But the energy has to come from somewhere, right?
Of course, but his actions are so deeply personal. Targeting Max, targeting Holly Wheeler, using their specific trauma and fear, that ties back to his own need to expose what he sees as moral corruption. That goes way beyond just, a base command to consume worlds. Consumption is generic. The ritual, the psychological warfare, the obsession with time, that is Vecna's unique signature. The Mind Flayer might be the abstract goal, the telos, but Vecna is the meticulous method. And if you remove the method, the goal it can't be achieved.
That's an interesting way to frame it, but I think the scale of the plan itself points to who's in charge. I mean, creating a permanent portal big enough to invade Earth, that requires an absolutely enormous amount of energy. We know this from Mr. Clark, right? He established that stable interdimensional travel needs an almost cosmic level of power, something that's impossible for a human psychic. So the simplest truth is that the Mind Flayer is letting Henry use its power. It's making Vecna's body the host and the channel for that energy. And if Vecna is just leveraging a power source that's way beyond him, it suggests a pretty clear hierarchy. The Mind Flayer is the owner. And if Henry is just tapping into the network, he can be commanded, or, even more frighteningly, he can be replaced. And this brings us right back to the Will Byers parallel, because Will shows us the mechanism. He shows us that the Mind Flayer's plan involves interchangeable hosts. Will's new powers, where he's like telekinetically snapping Demogorgon limbs, they come directly from accessing this shared hive mind. The show has woven this incredibly tight, purposeful parallel between Will and Henry Creel. They both have this unique connection to the Upside Down, and this is the big flag for me. They share the same birthday, March 22nd. That's not an accident. That's a narrative signal that Henry is just the prototype for what the Mind Flayer wants to do to Will.
I'm not convinced. I think that line of reasoning confuses raw power with strategic intellect.
But it's about control.
Look, Will's power is an echo of the hive mind. It's derived from exposure, from trauma. Vecna's power is the foundational, strategic force that built the whole infrastructure. If you build a complex operating system, sure, it can be compromised by another user, but that doesn't mean the raw data stream is in control. The Mind Flayer might be this amorphous cloud of dark energy, but Vecna is the irreplaceable mechanism. He's the one who could synthesize that energy into a highly specific ritual. The Mind Flayer is a shadow. It needed a host with Vecna's precision and strategic mind to go from just, parasitic consumption to a full-scale invasion.
But the mechanism of control is the entire point. The show itself uses phrases like Will puppeteering the creatures by tapping into Vecna's network. That implies the network, even if Henry designed it, is accessible and ultimately subservient to the Mind Flayer. We're talking about the difference between a general and the general's most effective weapon. The weapon is critical, yeah, but the general controls the war. Will's entire arc is built on this fear of turning into Henry Creel. And that fear exists because the possibility of being totally corrupted is real. If the Mind Flayer can achieve its goal through interchangeable hosts, then Vecna is functionally disposable.
But this is where we get into the narrative tension of it all. I mean, the Duffer Brothers have spent 9 years building this mythology. They promised a cohesive ending. If Vecna, the monster who blinded Max, who orchestrated all these deaths, who tore open Hawkins, if he's revealed to be just a corrupted victim who gets some small last-minute redemption, it undercuts the significance of all the trauma he inflicted. A fully self-aware Vecna acting with this deep-seated malice makes the final confrontation and whatever sacrifice Eleven or Will has to make, it makes it feel so much more earned. The story is building toward beating the monster, and Vecna is the face of that monster.
See, I disagree that that's the only meaningful ending. I come at it from a different way. I think the emotional depth you get from a victim villain actually raises the stakes. Noah Schnapp even said that Vecna is the most misunderstood character, which to me, that strongly supports the victim theory. If Vecna is really just Henry Creel, a troubled kid corrupted by this cosmic entity, it allows for a much more complex, tragic conclusion. It means the final fight isn't just about punching a monster. It's about realizing the ultimate evil isn't personal malice. It's this ancient, parasitic thing that manipulates our pain. A corrupted Henry could have a final act of redemption by turning on the Mind Flayer. That raises the stakes higher than we thought, because it means just defeating Vecna isn't enough. They have to destroy the storm itself.
But that psychological complexity you're talking about is already there in Vecna's motivations. We see him acting on his trauma. To demote him now to a pawn suggests his trauma was just a tool the Mind Flayer used, and that robs him of the very agency he claimed by shaping the Upside Down.
The person who designed the clockwork ritual, who's obsessed with time and breaking points, he has to be the ultimate target.
But the power dynamic is still the core issue. If the Mind Flayer is the one providing the cosmic energy, Vecna is fundamentally dependent. The Mind Flayer feeds on fear and chaos, and Vecna is just the most effective generator of that chaos it's ever found. The final confrontation should be about confronting the true source of the darkness, not just the human face it decided to wear.
So, at the end of the day, while the Mind Flayer holds this ancient, abstract power, Vecna is the tangible, strategic villain who molded that threat into a real invasion plan. He acts with clarity, with conviction, and he's woven his own trauma into the fabric of the final assault. For me, that makes him the definitive threat that has to be eliminated to save Hawkins.
And I still maintain that the parallels between Will and Henry, the lore about Henry's corruption, and just the sheer cosmic scale of it all suggests that Vecna is a host, a lightning rod, and the ultimate showdown will have to be about revealing the Mind Flayer as the true puppet master, requiring a kind of sacrifice we might not even be expecting yet to defeat the entity that wants to consume everything.
The tension between the need for a defined, personal villain like Vecna and the mythological complexity of an ancient entity like the Mind Flayer, that really is the central debate leading into the finale.
Indeed. And either way, it just confirms how meticulously this story has been built. We're finally going to get the answer to a mystery that's been years in the making.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.